I took this photograph. It's often a cliche that, of course, people don't come to Ireland for the sun. Of course, it's obvious. But what exactly does that mean? It's all very well to trot that out, but what does that mean? So I took this photograph last summer sitting on, well, lying on my back, as you can tell, on the beach in Portugal, where my only thoughts in my mind were, well, what am I going to have for dinner today? Will I bother reading the next chapter of the book now, or will I wait till later? Will I go for a dip now, or will I go for a walk? Those are the only thoughts in my mind. Now, a tourist coming to Ireland doesn't have to worry about thinking those thoughts. They're coming here for a cultural experience. So when we talk about cultural tourism, we have to acknowledge the fact that that is the reason, and the only reason, why people are coming here. So, this photograph I took a few weeks ago in the Alps in Switzerland. We have to acknowledge, and let's be honest about this. Of course, we don't have the sun. We have very little snow. There are mountains in Europe that are much, much bigger than ours. There are cliffs bigger than ours. There's everything bigger and better all around the world. And yet, as Paul Charlie would say, we punch above our weight in terms of the amount of tourists that we attract here. So what's bringing those people here? It isn't because we've got the biggest and most iconic archaeological sites in the country, or it isn't obviously because we've got the biggest mountains in the country, in the world. The reason, of course, is culture. And culture is about people. Now, if I was kind of gearing this talk, I suppose, to people in my own background, I'm an archaeologist by background, and anybody who's working in the heritage industry, if you like, because people who work in heritage, whether it's on built heritage or natural heritage, tend to think of heritage tourism as something that's, this is the holy grail, heritage tourism. Heritage, of course, is the reason why people are here. But actually, it's part of the reason why they're here. Because the word heritage really refers to the fact that it's our inheritance. It's something that we've inherited from the past. So it's a very, very important point. It's actually the baseline of everything that we work on. But the reason why people are coming here is for cultural reasons. Because there's lots of heritage all around the world. They don't have to come here for heritage specifically. They don't have to come here to play golf. They can play golf anywhere in the world. They can go canoeing, they can go cycling, they can go hill walking. All of those things you can do in many parts of the world. Why are they coming here? It's because of the culture. The one thing that nobody else in the world has is Irish people. It's as simple as that. That's what it's about. And a few people have already mentioned this idea about people. It's all about the people. Everything is about the people. So we can talk about all these wonderful assets that we have in terms of buildings, if they're old buildings or new buildings, if it's the landscape. None of those things actually would be of any importance in terms of tourism if it wasn't for the people and the people that bring that alive. And that's the key to all of this. Now, I have to put my hat on, my department hat on, because I'm here representing the department. So I'll try and get this over with briefly, because I want to return a little bit to kind of challenging minds as much as anything. I stole this from a Culture Ireland publication, and in fact, if you look at architecture, archaeology, museums and galleries, heritage towns, Gaeltacht, industrial heritage, national parks and wildlife, all of those things, these are all the buzzwords, if you like, to help define what we mean by cultural tourism. In fact, all of those things are covered by the Department of Arts, Heritage and the Gaeltacht that I work for. And the department only finally recognized this a little bit over a year ago when they created this post of Cultural Tourism Officer, which I was fortunate enough to take that post, and the reason why I'm here today. So the department kind of finally recognized that actually it has an important role to play in terms of tourism. I'll skip that. So what is the department's role in all of this? So I'm not going to worry about all of this. We've put together a quick strategy in terms of, for cultural tourism within the department. It's 1 page long. It doesn't need to be any longer. And one of the things that we did was set up, I call it the Cultural Heritage Tourism Working Group, just to keep people on the Heritage Division happy. And basically what we've done is we've pulled all of these people from all around the department, from the Arts Division, to the Heritage Division, the Gaeltacht Division, and also some of our agencies, the Arts Council, the Heritage Council, Waterways Ireland, and a few others, around the table, because the one thing that everybody has, of course, in common in the department, like all government departments, and like probably everybody around the room for the most part, we're all working in our own little silos. We're all thinking of what we're doing and forgetting about the bigger picture, as Siobhan was referring to earlier. The one thing that everybody has in common in the department is that they're working. Tourism is part of everybody's brief. So it's the one thing that we can all come together and talk about. There's very little else we have in common maybe, but one thing we do have in common is tourism. So we're finally talking about putting together an action plan, actually just identifying all the things that we do that tick the box of tourism. So I'm not going to present you with that list of all the things that we're doing, because that's really for internally as much as anything else. Although if anybody's interested in seeing it, they're more than welcome to email me and I'll forward it on. But the next step is actually to get people talking together and pooling resources and trying to figure out ways in which we can work together and make things a bit more effective when it comes to cultural tourism and what the department itself can do for tourism. Now, I suppose, apart from that, I would see my role as being the kind of the touchstone or the point of contact between people who are working in tourism and the department, and being able to put people in contact with whoever they might need to talk to in the department, whatever area they're interested in. Now, before I get flooded with phone calls, people inquiring about, can you put me in contact with such and such a person, or we want to develop a little walking trail somewhere, can you advise us? The fact is, and this is true for not just for me or for my department, it's true for everybody right across the board. We talk about lack of resources. We talk about lack of money. The only way for us, I think, to work in terms of developing destinations in tourism is to work together. When we talk about people, people is the key in terms of what tourists want to see, what they want to experience. People is also the key in terms of unlocking what we can do to create destinations. And I'm not worried about the Killarneys of the world and people like this who've already well established. I'm thinking more in terms of other areas that are still working to try and create that identity. And I think, having seen some of the examples here today, and not least the one I'm probably more familiar with, of course, it would be the Burren and Geopark, Cliffs Moor Geopark Life project that Carol was talking about this morning. And it's that collaborative approach where you get people from state agencies, from local authorities, from central government, from communities to businesses. That's the model that has to be used everywhere. That is the only way that this is going to leverage the type of resources and funding that is needed in order to create viable destinations. Because as one person, and I'm just talking about myself here, but this would be the same for anybody, for whether it's the county councils or whether it's state agencies or other government areas, and to be true for Fáilte Ireland, I'm sure, as well. If we want to invest our time, and more importantly, taxpayers' money, into developing tourism destinations, we have to be looking at that type of model. It has to be a collaborative one. It has to be something that we can all show is viable and that's going to work. The past model of maybe just throwing a bit of money for one particular little project here without the overall strategy or without the overall plan or without the overall vision is not going to work anymore. So I think if anybody is coming from an area that doesn't have that type of collaborative model, that's what you need to work on. Just going back a little bit to our own role in the department, actually the tourism plan that came out late last year was extremely useful for us, because in fact one of the things that it acknowledged, that the Department of Transport and Tourism acknowledged, was the fact that we have all of these wonderful assets around us, whether it's the landscape, whether it's the archaeological minings, all of these things, and we need to protect them. Now, for the Department of Tourism and Transport to come out and say, yes, we recognize that this is very valuable, we need to protect it, it actually makes our job in the department, because we're the ones very much responsible for making sure that the archaeological heritage and the natural heritage and all those things are protected. It makes our job a lot easier. And it also helped, actually, this is quite important, well, more important maybe for us in the department, it helped us change our mind a little bit. Well, I'm still working on it because I still have to, this is a message that I'm still trying to get across to a lot of my colleagues in the department. So, for example, take Ross Strait. Previously, if a planning application was coming in for, maybe I should have made it not so obvious as Tesco here, we would have said, well, you know, this is a national monument on archaeological grounds, you know, we shouldn't really be allowing you to build that big monstrosity of the Tesco right behind it, because, you know, it's not right. You know, in fact, it's more important than that. Forget about the archaeological significance of this. This is actually a key asset to Ross Strait. It's part of their tourism product. So, when this application was, if that was, I would hope at least if that planning application was coming in now, people would say, hang on a second, this is part of our tourism offering, it's part of our, it's an economic asset in the town, therefore we should be protecting it. And sorry, food store, whoever you are, go bugger off to another greenfield site somewhere else and don't be imposing on something that is an extremely important asset to this town. Now, I could use numerous examples of that. And I think now we are empowered actually to now say, look, sorry, this is important, we should be keeping it. And it's not just about its maybe archaeological significance, it's about the wider significance that it plays as an economic asset. Because very often anybody from the heritage background is afraid of using that term, economic asset. Well, why not? I mean, we could talk about it as being an asset, we could talk about it being an economic asset, it could be an educational asset, it could be an asset for a number of different reasons. It's an asset. Why not use the word? I'm just using this one because I think sometimes people, this is more aimed at political audience, I suppose, there's this fear, this perception somehow that tourism is a silver bullet. And particularly when economic times went down, people seem to think, well, you know, if we create tourism, it'll help revive, particularly in rural Ireland. But it's not. Tourism is not a silver bullet. It won't cure any economic issues in an area. It simply won't. And anybody who thinks that it will is in denial. Because the fact is, the only reason why tourists are going to go to an area is because it is vibrant. It's lively. And so tourism isn't going to help make an area vibrant. It has to be vibrant in the first place. It has to be it has to be a place where people want to live in the first place and are proud of. People are not proud of it, really couldn't care less. And tourism is not going to change that. And one of the things I wanted to say, this slide isn't referred to, maybe I'll just go back to the previous slide. I just want to make 2 quick points. I think it's very important that, because I think when we think of our assets, if you like, in the past what we've tended to do is put them on a bookshelf, almost. You know, we put them on the shelf there. There's a nice castle, or there's a nice old forge, or whatever it might be. It could be anything really. It could be the physical landscape as well, it could be anything. And we put it up on a bookshelf. We're not engaging with it. We're not taking that book off the shelf and having a read, are we? So we're not actually appreciating, we're not valuing that asset by just simply leaving it there. We have to engage with it. It has to be engaged with. I love those examples, those gnarly references in the woods there that we just heard about. That's the type of engagement, and there's lots of different types of engagement, but it's actually taking those things off the shelf and engaging with it. It helps tell the story that Siobhan was talking to you about. This local story, which is what makes, I mean, you could call it universal selling point if you want, from a marketing point of view, but it's all about the story, it's all about the narrative. What makes Loophead different from Sheepshead? It's all down to the people again, but it's all of those things combined. It's all of those things. It's not any one thing. It's all of those things. And I was glad that Xavier just used the word earlier, that the word sustainable sucks. So now I don't feel so bad and isolated saying it. I don't like the words sustainable tourism. They don't mean anything to me. And I could be in trouble now, Harold. I would ask the same question, as you can see from the question mark, of the word responsible. Because really what we're talking about is positive tourism. I'm going to be controversial now and upset apple cart and all of that, throw the cat amongst the pigeons and blah, blah. We're talking about positive tourism. We're talking about a type of tourism that is positive for the environment, it's positive for local communities, it's positive for local businesses, and most of all, it's positive for the tourist. Because if they're not feeling positive about it, and we're not getting positive impact from it, or if the environment is not getting any positive impact from it, then it's not working. It's not going to work, and it won't be, to use the word, sustainable. So I kind of just introducing this really, and the same word that I suppose the policy type makers in the audience, you know, is this to me is a much more positive word, use the pun, because I think it actually covers everything. It's much more self-explanatory than the word sustainable, and which is a word that could mean anything to a lot of people, and could also, I think as we've already seen, put a number of people off. So thank you very much.